Welcome everyone, and today we are going to continue our Dao De Jing translation. And last week we finished on chapter 22, and today we are going to start from chapter 23. And as usual, please raise your hand to read your translation. After we read two or three version of translation, Amang and I will share our translation, and then we will discuss on the specific chapter. So from chapter 23, Kwang, please.
Okay, so stanza 23, translation by Professor Mose Roberts. The whirlwinds span before the morning ends. The storm will pass before the day is done. Who made them, wind and storm, heaven and earth? If heaven itself cannot storm for long, what matter then the storms of man? But those who attend and serve the way correspond to the way. Those who attend and serve the power correspond to the power. Those who decline to attend and serve them correspond to their decline. Those who correspond to the way win favor. And those who correspond to its decline, the way will decline to favor. Those unworthy of trust are met with distrust.
Thank you, Kwang. Kwang, can you read the very first sentence?
Yes. The whirlwinds spent before the morning ends.
But look like you missed the very first one, right? 西人自然. Professor
In
Robert didn't translate.
No, he start with the whirlwind spent before the morning ends.
Okay, so he missed the first
So
four
here
words.
he took a very big freedom. He just removed the first line.
Okay, yeah, that's common. Because sometimes you sometimes you don't find uh the phrase or stanza doesn't fit to the whole chapter, and sometimes I also put a bracket. For example, this one I put a bracket on the very last one because some translator or interpreter will consider that one doesn't belong to this chapter. Thank you. Any other version of translation? Anyone want to read? No?
I can do the Derek Lind if no one else wants to read another one.
Okay.
Sparse, chapter 23. Sparse speech is natural. The strong wind does not last all morning. Sudden rain does not last all day. What makes this so? Heaven and earth. Even heaven and earth cannot make it last. How can humans? Thus, for those who follow the Tao, those of the Tao are with the Tao. Those of virtue are with virtue. Those of loss are with loss. Those who are with the Tao is also pleased to have them. Those who are with virtue is also pleased to have them. Those who are with loss is also pleased to have them. Those who do not trust sufficiently, others have no trust in them. That's it.
Thank you, Darren. So anyone want to read other version?
I could read mine.
Okay, Stuart, please.
Sound good? So I have the Ursula Le Guin copy.
Okay.
Chapter 23. Nature doesn't make long speeches. A whirlwind doesn't last all morning. A cloudbird doesn't last all day. Who makes the wind and rain? Heaven and earth do. If heaven and earth don't go on and on, certainly people don't need to. The people who work with Tao are Tao people. They belong to the way. People who work with power belong to power. People who work with loss belong to what's lost. Give yourself to the way, and you'll be at home on the way. Give yourself to power, and you'll be at home in power. Give yourself to loss, and when you're lost, you'll be at home. To give no trust is to get no trust.
Thank you. Okay, so let me share my screen and then, oh, just 1 minute, just 1 minute. Yeah. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm going to
go.
need you to scroll because mine won't open for some reason. Chapter 23, Together with a Tao. Use few words and let things be. Hence, a strong wind does not last a whole morning. A rainstorm does not continue for a whole day. How is this so? Nature. If nature cannot make these last, how can men? Therefore, those who follow the Tao will be together with the Tao. Those who follow De will be together with De. Those who lose the Tao or De will be together with their loss. For those together with the Tao is glad to have them. For those together with De is glad to have them. For those together with their losses, the losses are glad to have them. If you don't have enough confidence, people will not have confidence in you.
Thank you, Amang. Okay. The reason I asked Kwang to read the very first one because I think the first foreword is important in this chapter called 西言自然, okay, in Chinese. And my interpretation could be very different than most of the translator or interpretation because I translate as use few words and let things be. Okay, 自然, a lot of translation will translate as nature. That's why I say a lot of translation will say nature speak few words or speak few words is nature, something like this. But I think that this four character is a teaching to the prince. Okay, that means speak less, let sing, let people do what they want to do. Okay, then come with some example. Okay, like strong wind does not last the whole morning. A rainstorm does not continue for whole day. Okay, why? Because nature. The words use 天地, okay, heaven and earth. And in general, I translate heaven and earth as nature. So the first phrase, okay, it talking about these things its way because you have no way to control. And then, for example, strong wind will stop by itself, and then a rainstorm will not continue for whole day. Okay, that's the example give to the ruler. Okay, so it say nature cannot make this last long, and how can man? Okay, don't control it. Okay, then talking about other thing about Tao, about De, and sometimes we translate as virtue, sometimes we translate as power. So if you have Tao, then Tao will be with you. If you have De, those are the people with the De or virtue or power. The power, they will be with the power. If you lost it, they talk about negative term, right? If you don't have either one, neither Tao nor De, then yeah, you will be in loss. And then it repeats one more time, talking about if you be with Tao, then Tao will be great with them. For those together with the De will be great with them. And if those together with losses, the losses will great with them. Okay, so it's repeat. And the final one, and I think also our translation is a little bit different than others because the Chinese word 信, okay, again, I mentioned a couple times in the previous section. Here we translate as confident. okay, instead of trust or trustworthy. Because we believe trustworthy is more, even the same Chinese word, but in Confucius teaching, it's more like trustworthy, okay? But in Taoism teaching, especially this one, because it's talking about let things be, okay? So how can you have let go things? Because you have enough confidence. So people will have confidence on you. So in another way, in the whole chapter is tell the ruler, don't use strong power. Let things be. Just like strong wind will not last long. Rainstorm will not continue for whole day. That's the nature. I think that's the message for this one. That's all I want to say about this chapter, and let's hear what amounts.
Thank you, Jason. Full disclosures, I am currently teaching a Philosophy 101 course, and I am using some of the excerpts of our translations in that course for some of their reading in addition to their textbook. Students have to write me papers weekly about what they have read and their thoughts and experiences. And a student was writing about moral egoism and how she found it distasteful but very compelling. And then she pointed to the concept of Xin, which she read in Confucius Analects. And she didn't have exactly the words for why she understood this. Implicitly, she sort of understood there's a counter argument in this Confucian idea. And I wrote her back, quite happy to hear it. I like that we start with this chapter where that word Xin is being used again, but it's being used in a different way. And because of that, it makes me feel compelled to talk about polemic language. A word does not have a meaning. Words have meanings in context, and words can be used to further a particular understanding. So just like the words justice or freedom are ambiguous terms that can be put into the mouths of different people to mean entirely separate things, so too what the Dao De Jing does is borrow the language of Confucius, but recontextualize it in a way that is almost a 180-degree mirror image of what you'll often find in the Analects or in the teachings of Confucius. So when he talks about the Tao, it's a capitalized, omnipresent, universal force, whereas Confucius talking about the Tao is talking about the way the government ought to get its act together and get things running correctly. When they talk about "the," there's many ways of choosing to translate this, but these are particular words that when we choose not to translate them, it's because something is being conveyed that this word has a deeper meaning than some mere English approximate. And so "de" as virtue or as power, those work, but it's something a little bit more profound even than that. And Xin as a political idea, as an idea that people will have trust in you, that rings to me like confidence. And just like you can have a vote of no confidence. So yeah, we made some decisions that aren't typical of other translations, but I definitely stand by them, and I think our meaning comes across, or our translation, the meaning becomes a little easier to tease out and see what this chapter is on its face. A directive to not try so hard. Heaven can't keep going all damn day, so you shouldn't be trying to either.
All right, thank you, Amam. Okay, so right now we come with some brief discussion about this chapter, and if you have a question, you have a comment, or if you want to share what you learned from this chapter, please raise your hand. We have a Madeline, Mark, and Kwok. Madeline, please.
Well, thank you both, Jason and Aman. Wonderful as usual. Just what I needed to hear. I liked the word confidence when I thought about it because it can mean an air of certainty, but it also has the connotations of to confide. So meaning to trust someone. So I thought it worked well. My question is about in this the text seems to separate following the Tao is separated from De. And just wondering why that is. Usually it doesn't seem separated. Maybe I've just lost the plot.
Okay, thank you. Well, at least that's my interpretation. I don't see they separate, and then at least that's how I read it. I read it as a two different level, right? Some people on the level of Tao, and then some people on the level of De, and doesn't mean that they separate. Okay, so or you can be both, right? And then the interesting is the third one talking about laws. Let me share the screen. Okay. So the first one talking about Dao, then talking about De, and I don't see they separate. Okay, but if you read as a separate, then I don't know. It could be separate, but I don't know. You have a different opinion among or anybody, you know. So that's what
I'll say very briefly, Dao and De form a really nice yin yang pair. And so they're not conflictory, they're not oppositional. They are complementary to one another. Those who follow Dao and will be together with Dao, and Dao will be glad to have them. Following a yin path is an option, and it's one we all take. At the end of our days, after a long, busy day, we come home, we sit down. Maybe we decide this weekend we'll be in my jammies on the couch. I'm going to follow the yin path this weekend. I'm going to be with the Tao of how I need to be. And at other times, we need to follow the De. We need to vamp up, caffeinate, go out, entertain, dazzle. But that's always going to be a little shorter. It burns hotter and briefer. Tao is sustainable. De ebbs and flows. And so either one you will follow at different points in your life. Better to be conscientious of the Tao, you'll have greater longevity. Being without either one, well, you're just going to be floundering, and your foibles will be happy to have you for it.
Thank you, Amam. Okay, so I hope we got the so-called right answer.
Yes, that was very illuminating. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a Mark, please.
Yeah, thanks. I have a question. Jason, can you put the text back up?
Okay.
Thank you so much. So my comment is I really like the first section. It reminds me, one of my greatest frustrations in human interaction is there's a lot of people who seem to think that talking more is better, like it increases your status, makes you seem more knowledgeable, et cetera, et cetera. And I find that really frustrating. I think it shows respect and consideration for other people and a collective sense to use an economy of speech so that it's not just about like what the speaker can accomplish for themselves, but it's about what the group accomplishes together. And to do that efficiently, you need to make space, or I need to make space for other people to speak and respond as well. So that's what I think of those first three lines. I really like that. And then the second thing was I want to propose a slightly different translation and see what you guys think of it. And I'm going to preface this with with a little bit of reasoning about Chinese language and culture, which I don't know a lot about, so I may be quite off. But one of the things that's interesting about Chinese culture compared to Indo-European culture is they both went through this period of patriarchalization where male dominance became much more significant as the societies developed. And you see this particularly in Confucianism in China and Christianity. Like in Christianity, the father and the son, and all these male references, the Lord and the King, etc. And in Confucianism, there's a lot of emphasis on male supremacy. And as a result, in the English language, philosophy and thought in general tends to replace the concept of humanity with mankind or people with man. But the Chinese language, Chinese culture, although it went through a similar process of patriarchalization, the language is very stable itself. And the language still reflects a lot of pre-patriarchal culture. Like I think the character Xing for last name includes the character for a woman, but not the character for a man. And in this passage, and I just want to make a point about the Dao De Ching. With my rather limited knowledge of ancient Chinese texts, I've looked at a bunch of them, but there's a lot of them. The Tao Te Ching is the one which pushes back against patriarchy more than anything else I've seen. It's got more of an emphasis on the feminine than the masculine than any other text. So, in the line 6 in English, and how can men? Okay, the actual line. The second to last character, yeah, thank you. The second to last character where Jason is highlighted is, I believe, run, which doesn't literally translate as men, I believe. It translates as people or person. And so I think that translation into English is a little bit familiar to people who've read philosophy in English. And there is, certainly a strong patriarchal bent in Chinese society as well. But I don't think that reflects well on the actual literal meaning of the word, either in ancient China or in modern China. And I don't think it reflects well on the lack of patriarchalism in the Tao Te Ching specifically. So I'm interested in what anybody else thinks about that issue. That's it.
Thank you, Mark. That's a big question. Okay, so yeah, you are correct. Okay, man means male person. Ren means both male and female. But again, in the Chinese, especially ancient Chinese culture, even you talk about Ren, which is gender neutral, but it means man. Okay, so unfortunately, it's not. It doesn't mean both man and the woman. Okay, so in this way, I have no other word to use. I think if I translate as people, that's another way to do it. But again, it's different. I feel man sounds better. Okay, but of course, it's not perfect translation. But thank you anyway to bring up this this way. Yeah, Amang, you have a better idea because
I just want to propose that I agree and understand what Mark is saying, and it's a very strong point. Yes, the Tao Te Ching is probably the least patriarchal in its subtext of any of the Chinese classics. But it is actually holding to its.
Oh, sorry, Amang. Yeah.
That's okay. It is holding to its spirit to translate this as men as a direct assault against a particular gender who are the patriarchy in charge. But Jason is right that the original character for Ren is a generic person, but you would see it next to a character like Nu for a woman to indicate these are all people, these are somehow sub people. And that's not me saying it, it's not my feelings on it, but that male chauvinist view or bent was present in the Chinese language very early and remains there in some degrees. Quan, I'd be really curious to hear your take on this.
Just before Kwang, yeah, and what's that? Mandarin just said man sounds outdated. I think you are right. It sounds probably I should consider change this one to people. You know, that's another option. How can people or human or something like this? It probably I think that's a good good suggestion because I probably not thinking too much, thinking enough when I use this word. I just say, how about man? Okay, that's it. And probably I read too much on the Western ancient, outdated Western philosophy. So I just say, oh, how about man? That's it, you know, because in the Western philosophy, before 18th century, the philosopher all use man to represent all people. So yeah, that's a good point. Anyway, Kwang, please.
Yes, I would like to say before going into my comment itself that in English, man is more referring to mankind, okay? Because the Latin word for man is virilus, okay? Virile. So man is for both. That being said, I'm coming back to the Tao Te Ching. Very strangely, I think that what in English literature that would be the closest to the Tao Te Ching would be John Minton's Paradise Lost and Paradise Found. And I explain myself. The Tao Te Ching has been written around 400 BCE, and it has been, let's say, the version that we have has been contrived by the Imperial Academy in 136 between 136 BCE and 124 BCE, when the Imperial Academy has been officially inaugurated. So what we have here is already something very patriarchal. What is we can see in the Tao Te Ching is an invitation maybe to be more aware, but the hierarchy is already there. When it has been created by the sons of the nobility. I cannot believe that those people were truly against the feudal hierarchy. Okay, they might be a little bit rebellious. They might invite people to be more relaxed. They might invite people to be more open to other aspects and power, but they are fundamentally the sons of the high nobility. That being said, that stanza 23 evokes a lot stanza 38, okay, when the stanza 38 began with the highest Tao, and when the highest Tao is lost, we go down to Ran, after that we go down to Yi, and after that we go down to service, and after that we go down to rituals. Meaning that, and it is exactly not the copy, but let's say the brother of this stanza 23. And we all know that can be translated by virtue or by power. And I would say that the first line, 戏言自然, I think that I like very much a translation by Jason and by Amon, meaning that use few words and let things be. Okay. But I would like also to say, which is saying almost the same thing, but with other words, that what is natural is not saying a lot of things. Okay. Because if you're happy, if you are enjoying your life, most of the time you just enjoy your life. You don't make categories, you don't make classifications, and you don't participate in hierarchy. Okay, that beautiful innocence of the origin has been lost long ago when the Tao Te Ching has been written around 400 BCE. Let's be serious, okay? China has been a feudal regime since at least 2000 BCE. So it has been a feudal regime since at least 16 centuries before the Tao Te Ching has been written. And the version that we have is from the Imperial Academy. So it's about 18 centuries after the Tao Te Ching has been written. So after the beginning of the feudal regime, okay? So I just want to say that it's resembled a lot, as I say, to Paradise Lost and Paradise Found or Recovered by John Minton, but it's an invitation. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwang. I think what's your name? Stuart, you have something to say? I saw you raise your hand.
I went ahead and put it in the comments. I was just saying that the Ursula Gwynn translation uses person, and I do think it works as a letter to the patriarchy to address it as men that work from it.
Yep. Thank you. Nick, please.
Yeah, thanks. Jason, do you mind putting up your translation?
Okay.
I have a comment on the last sentence.
Okay.
Okay. Do you mind going to your chapter 17? I see here a table of
Okay, 17, yeah. Because 17, okay. Before we go later, I put a bracket here because some interpreter would believe this one is not belong here because it's repeat from 17, right? Yeah, because the same word from 17. Okay. So if you don't have enough content, so that's why I put the bracket because some people believe this because it's the exact sentence in Chinese, and then some interpreter believe this not belong to them. Okay, so yeah, please, Nick.
Yeah, just to follow up on that thought. Keep in mind, 2,500 years ago, these guys did not have papers, so they wrote on a piece of bamboo, material, and then they string them together, and that suspicious-looking repetition could be because the misplacement of one of the little piece of bamboo pieces, in the collection of those stuffs. So my comment is really, if that's the case, or at least the identical Chinese characters, the context of 17, chapter 17, is really about the relationship between a ruler and the ruled. Yeah. So, and obviously here it could chapter 23 could also be read in that context. So that brings to mind that this Xin, this character Xin, feels like the more relational in that sense. If it's relational, then trustworthy, credibility could mean more appropriate than confidence. So that's my comment. Yeah, thanks.
Excuse me, Nick. I just missed your last word about your argument about trustworthy is better. Yeah, I'd like to hear. Sorry, I missed it.
Because if you put in the context of chapter 17, which is really about the relationship between the ruled and the ruler. Yeah.
Yeah. Here. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's about how should the ruler conduct itself with respect to the ruled. And chapter 23, the one we just read, can also be interpreted in that way. So if that's the case, the focus is really on the relationship. And in relationship, we usually say, credibility, trust, trustworthiness, instead of confidence. Confidence is also a good word, but it has a bit less of a relationship angle in that sense. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think you make a very good point. Yeah. I think a very good point. Anyway, Steve, please.
Hello. I'm going to risk asking this, and I say risk because, again, I'm grateful that you let me in late. And if you've already talked about this, just tell me to go away. But I had a very specific question on this one, given my translation.
Okay.
In near the end, it talks about loss. And this translation also used the word loss, but it suggests that the word loss throughout, they say, this is DC Lau again, doesn't make much sense. It's possible that it's a graphical error for heaven rather than loss. And I was just wondering if that came up in your thinking about the translation.
And I never heard about this. Okay, because I have to agree with you. This we talk about Tao and talk about De, then talk about Shi, which is a little bit odd. Okay, so what you read is DC Tao, right?
Yes, that's
DC
correct.
yeah, and usually I don't take DC Tao's translation, but this one I
Huh?
think it makes sense, because you see this word "shi" and "tian," which is heaven. Okay, heaven is this word, right? You may see it looks alike. Okay, so it could be some misspelling or misread, I think that's a good point, and I don't know. That's the first time I hear.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, it's
interesting.
just it's the footnote in here, and so that was of
Yeah,
interest.
it could be the case, because
He
or
chose
loss.
loss.
Yeah, loss is a little bit strange, but people have to come with some idea to figure out. Let me see. Yeah, even on the ancient one B's version, also consider didn't still talking about Tian or heaven. It's talking about Shi, okay, which is loss. So good point. That's I just have to say that. Thank you. Thank you
Okay,
for
sure.
sharing
Thank
this.
you.
Darren, please.
I was just staring at the text and and the thought of maybe another way to interpret it that's different from all the ones that were read and yours and ones I've seen. First, I just want to just quickly comment though on the feminine, masculine, women, male, female thing. Um, I think one interesting source for understanding Taoists, at least through the lens of someone else, that's always a bit useful to see it through the lens of other people, would be the Confucians or the Ruists and the and Confucius Analects, in which Taoists or proto-Taoists do show up. And in my recollection, I think all of them are men. So there aren't, and I'm pretty sure if there really were like, the stories are of, Confucius wandering around and running into Taoists in the countryside, and they have some, they have some fight and verbal fight, and then but we never really see. I don't think we don't see women Taoists, and I'm pretty sure if there were, or if they existed to any kind of prominence, that the Confucius would definitely love to point it out, because they would have loved to attack the Taoists for having women in their ranks doing this stuff. So I'm just saying I think the Confucius Analects is actually an interesting lens at seeing Taoists and how Taoists were perceived and understood at the time. Not through their own internal view, internal perspectives, but from an outside perspective. Okay, that to the interpretation now. So I was looking at so I really love this group, by the way, because we're also reading it in Chinese. usually I don't often look at them together in this way, and this has been just a wonderful exercise. So I'm looking at the last line now. So in Cantonese, 信不足，言有不信言。Sorry, 言有不信言. It's kind of a tongue twister. And so I noticed though that it doesn't actually refer to people per se. It's not like others have trust in you. It's like, so the Derek Lin translation is those who do not trust sufficiently, others have no trust in them. So just a side note here, this is actually a psychological principle that's like shown to be true. That if you seeing people, I just had a meetup on this actually on cynicism, that if you're cynical about other people, they actually tend to like break promises to you more and treat you worse. There's various processes and mechanisms for this, but so this is actually true psychologically, but it doesn't have to be interpreted as other people, because I don't know, like I don't see other people mentioned in this last sentence. Hang on, I have to bring it up again. I was just looking at it and I lost it. Okay, here we go. Yeah. So I wonder if it could just mean that it could mean something like what the previous chapter, the chapter 23, the rest of chapter 23 means. It's because it's saying that those who follow the Tao are with the Tao, and then later on it says those who are with the Tao is also pleased to have them. Those who are with virtue, virtue is also pleased to have them. So the last line doesn't necessarily, it might refer to other people, but maybe it could also just refer to something more metaphysical and internal, that like, you know, if you have like trust or confidence in the world, then you will sort of get confidence and trust. It's like it's like how you get this like process going, right? Like just like with the other things discussed in chapter 33. If you have the Tao will be with you. If you have virtue, virtue will be with you. If you're with virtue, virtue will be with you. If you're with loss, loss will be with you. So it could just be it could be making a political point, but it could also just be something about the world having faith or confidence in you as well, like nature. That might sound weird, but it doesn't sound more weird than the rest of chapter 23, because it's saying, you know, if you have virtue, then virtue would be pleased to have you. And if you are with loss, and loss is a personification of loss, it will be pleased to have you. So the last line just might be the same kind of maybe more metaphysical idea that doesn't necessarily have to refer to other people literally having trust in you. But anyway, that's just a thought.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. Yeah, you're right, because if you read it in Chinese, that's not talking about people or something. It just say this word, and it's a typical Chinese way, or ancient Chinese way, or Chinese text, you know, because whatever words we see important words, they just skip. So that's why I also agree with Nick's interpretation, say trust is better because it talks about relationship. But unfortunately, here has no people mentioned, so we don't know. But anyway,
Jason, before we move on too quickly, I wanted to backtrack and address what was it Steve's question regarding DC Lao's commentary.
okay.
The scholar in me had to go and do the research. DC Lao's translation comes from 1963, and the Mawang manuscript wasn't discovered until 1973.
Okay.
The Mawang Dui has shi, loss, just like the Guidian does, which actually affirms that although he would like it to say Tian and just be a mistranscription, he was incorrect.
That's really interesting. So he simply didn't have, you're saying there was a source that came after him that confirms the loss hypothesis, basically.
Yep.
Very interesting. Hey, thank you for sharing that.
But again, okay, we really don't know, because it could be whatever you find is still a copy, right? So when you copy and the copy and the copy, it could make a mistake. So actually, we don't know. And but anyway, that's another good thing about reading this ancient text, because they have a lot of mistake. So you have a freedom to correct it and then exercise your brain. Okay, anyway, that's my opinion. Thank you. So, okay, we have a lot of hands up. Let's go to the person who haven't spoke yet. Let's go to Kevin, Mark, Kwang, and Mark, the Mark who haven't speak yet. Okay, Kevin, please.
Yes, thank you for that. Sorry guys. First, I would about the Xing. I agree with Nick's observation about Xing. For last, you already highlighted. First thing I would consider is noun. Is trustworthy or credibility? If a ruler you don't have your build your credibility, how can people trust? The second I would consider verb. The first sentence 写字, obviously they so beautiful. We learn from the nature. Obviously, the whole Dao De Jing or Taoism is close related how nature works. Then we can turn to from a human being or people or person ourselves. So that's a perfect example of this chapter. So how the morning, the rainstorm, actually, I'm in Toronto, it's just happened. It's the last half hour. It's just destroy the tree and the roof leaking, and however, it's gone. It's sunny come up. It's nature act like that. How about ourselves? Even you think about our politicians, you think about how they act, maybe they can impact the world. Could be worse, could be better, but it's gone. It's like day and night. It's a turn change. You cannot keep the day always keep sign up. They got own rules. So I like this chapter because a perfect example, I would say, another way from how to structure the context, how logic for each chapter. Yeah, from Dao De Jing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Let's go to Mark Senberg.
Thanks, Jason. I just wanted to mention that in chapter 22, you wrote about not flaunting yourself, not priding yourself, in general, not boasting. And I think that theme is continued here in a way that demonstrates the logic behind the Tao Te Ching. In some ways, I've been looking for ways in which logic manifests itself. And here in 23, it says, if earth and heaven cannot do X, then man or humans or people cannot. So that's an a fortiori argument from what is less obvious to what is more obvious.
Okay, yeah.
A fortiori. And it just, I think, speaks to the humility, that we should not think that we can do everything that we can imagine. The humility is being carried forward from 22.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And then when we go to 24, you will see the same message repeat. Okay, so thank you, Mark. Then go to Kwang.
Okay. What I would like to add is that patriarchy is related to language, but also to private property. Okay, I think that many anthropologists would agree that why we transited from matriarchy to patriarchy is because the complex societies began to have people having more stuff than most people in that community, so private property. So it became important to be sure that your son is your son. So there are distinctions that are given by language. And I would like to say that language is also the source of concepts, which is one of the source of scientific creativity. So, but also intuition and imagination for creativity, of course. So I would say that it's a price to be paid for civilization, or the civilization that we imagine, okay? The civilization that is very techno-scientific. So I come back a little bit to John Minton's Paradise Lost. I think that we don't have a choice. We have to go through a phase when the distinction, the classification, the language become very complex with all the hierarchy and the classifications, which gives a lot of things for mankind, but at the same time, there's a price to be paid. So here, once again, I come back to the fact that this Tao Te Ching has been created at the moment of Chinese civilization, where the language has been very complex already. Okay, so it was not a society of original innocence. So it was already a society with a kind of technology, of a kind of social organization which was complex, and which acknowledged the usefulness of language for the creation of civilization, but who invited to keep that knowledge on created on languages, on concepts, but at the same time being capable to be centered in pure awareness. And I would like to be a little bit stubborn, but I think that for the question of language, I think that notwithstanding the specific authors, we have a very good idea of what the words mean because we know the social background of the authors. And that social background, as I repeat again, but after that I won't shut up, that social background, those people are members of the high nobility of the time. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwang. We have a Mark. Then we are going to move to 24.
Yeah, I really like Kwang's remarks, and they displaced from my mind what I was going to say. So I'm going to address what he said. So I agree with pretty much everything he said. But I want to point, and a lot of people have made some similar points, although Kwang, I think, put it in a broader historical context, which is really important. But I want to stress that this is the culture that the Tao Te Ching lived in, but it's not, at least from my reading, it's not what the Tao Te Ching aspired to. The Tao Te Ching aspired to go back before the patriarchy, like the reference to tying knots instead of writing characters, for example. All the attacks or the criticism of Ren and all the criticisms of social hierarchy, etc. So although it existed in that culture, I think it was looking to go back further than the Zhao, further than Confucianism, to that pre-patriarchal society, and that's why I think it's important the emphasis that you get on the feminine in the Tao Te Ching that you don't get in other texts. And then there's one question I wanted to ask everybody, which is a historical question, and this was spurred by Darren's comments about Confucian polemics against Taoism, which I thought was really interesting. It's my impression that Taoism doesn't really exist until Sima Qian classifies the Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi together, and that prior to that, any polemic would be against Laozi or against Zhuangzi, but not against Dao Jia, which was something that was created when Sima Qian classified all these philosophies. And I want to know if others think that's right or not. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mark. But that's a big question, and we probably will not discuss this one. Just briefly, in my opinion, is I do see Laozi and Dao De Jing and the Zhuangzi as a very different view. For example, social hierarchy. Laozi, I don't see, Dao De Jing, I don't see much about against the social hierarchy. But in Zhuangzi, I do see a lot of idea of individualism and against the social hierarchy. But that's another question, another thing we can discuss in a different day or different subject. Let's move on to chapter 24. Okay, again, please raise your hand if you want to read the version, your translation. Okay, so we will take, I believe Kwang will read. Oh, Steve, go first. Okay, Steve.
You said raise your hand. So,
Yeah, that's right. Steve is best. Go ahead.
so this is the DC Lao again. So that's I think I've got two, but this is the one I've pulled off the shelf. So 24, it says, "He who tiptoes cannot stand, he who strides cannot walk. He who shows himself is not conspicuous. He who considers himself is not illustrious. He who brags will have no merit. He who boasts will not endure. From the point of view of the way, these are excessive food and useless excrescences. As there are things that detest them, he who has the way does not abide in them."
Thank you, Steve. Kwang, please.
Okay, so the translation by Professor Moss Roberts, stanza 24. How long can you stand up on your toes? How far walk with stretching stride? Self-display does not illumine, self-justifying sets no pattern. Self-advancement won't succeed. Self-assertion cannot lead. In terms of Tao, as has been said, live food discarded, excess actions provoke repugnance. Tao keepers will indeed avoid that.
Thank you. Any other one want to read different version? Okay, so let's go. 24.
Chapter 24, Not Staying With. Those who tiptoe cannot stand. Those who straddle cannot walk. Those who reveal themselves won't be known. Those who assert themselves won't be appreciated. Those who flaunt themselves won't achieve. Those who pride themselves won't endure. He who stays with the Tao would say these are all either leftover food or unwanted fat. Therefore, those with the Tao would not stay with them.
Thank you, Amang. Okay, so I think this chapter is simple and just like Mark talking about this, we can see these three chapters together. Okay, so chapter 22, they're talking about without revealing himself, he is known. Without asserting himself, he is appreciated. Without flaunting himself, he achieves. Without priding himself, he endures. So that's the Chinese word. 不自见故明，不自视故彰，不自发故有功，不自矜故长。Okay, so here talking about if you are too strong, wind does not last a whole morning. The rainstorm does not continue for a whole day. Or talking about if you are strong, powerful, doesn't last long, and suggests against being strong, right? And here, basic 24, again, on this one. Okay, so same word, basic, the same lesson. And then at the beginning, it's talking about if you tiptoe, right? You cannot stand. That means tiptoe. You want to be, why you want to tiptoe? Because you want to be taller. You try to be tall, so you cannot stand. Straddle, okay, you try to become wider, look like you are wider, bigger, but then you cannot walk, just like you are flaunting, then you cannot achieve. I think that's the first two sentences is give you an example from the nature phenomena, and the last four give you a lesson, right? And finally, it's interesting talking about this kind of behavior, right? Self-revealing, self-affirming, self-flaunting, self-priding are like leftover food or unwanted fat. Okay, so the person with Tao will not stay with them. Okay, so that's the lesson about from this chapter 24. Okay, Aman, you have your
Yeah,
turn.
briefly, I like what you were pointing to, and I would just offer it again, standing on tiptoes, you're reaching, straddling, you're trying to balance too much opposition. You're trying to bridge too far a gap. When you're revealing yourself, that's the person who is the overshare expert. We've all met one of those whose life story got told to us as we were just trying to order at the drive-through window. People who assert themselves, we've all worked for a petty tyrant. We probably all didn't appreciate them. People who flaunt themselves don't achieve. It's hard to stomach that one in the current world environment where those who flaunt themselves seem to be the highest achievers, but we don't get to see what's actually happening in their actual lives. And stories do tell that those who put on a good air often are the most miserable. And those who pride themselves won't endure. If you think you're the greatest thing in the world, it will not take long before the rest of the world decides you are not. So, how should you treat these things? Like gristle and fat that you don't want to eat. And if you have an understanding of the Tao, of really what the way is, you won't try and do any of these because you understand their futility.
Okay, thank you, Aman. Okay, so let's have a brief discussion about this chapter. If you have a question, comments. No?
I know Darren put something in the chat.
Yeah, that's what I raised my hand for. I mean,
okay,
yeah, I just thought I'd jump in since no one else is speaking, but
okay.
yeah.
Good question. Okay, let me see. Okay, okay, yes, you make a good point. Okay, and that's the difficult part. Okay. 物或恶之, you want to ask this question, right? Your question is what does it mean, right? Okay, I translate as those. No. He who stay with Tao will say, okay, got you. Okay, 其在道者曰, okay, so he who stay with Tao will say, okay, what he will say, these things, okay, right? He will say, this thing, okay, things are all either, okay, I reverse, okay, because the subject is this, okay, because its subject is this, things, okay, will detest it, okay, I don't like it because it like the leftover food or the unwanted fat, okay, that's the fat, okay, so it doesn't say things. What's the things? And I have to assume the thing means self-revealing, self-affirming, self-flaunting, self-priding. Okay. Yeah, that's the
Okay.
reason I do that. Okay. So you hit the point. That's a difficult part. I have to make sure it makes sense. That's why I make this kind of translation. So I hope I answer your question. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna think about it, but thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a difficult part. You ask the very difficult part. Yeah, you are right. Yeah. Kwang, please.
Yes, I would like to read a short paragraph from the comment by Professor Moss Roberts concerning this stanza. The He Shang Kong commentary, and He Shang Kong was a guy who lived between 200 BCE to 150 BCE. So he was living during the Han Empire, and he gave the titles of the 81 stanza, for those who forgot that. So the He Shang Kong commentary applies the first line to the conduct of a ruler. Standing up on tiptoe means that those who crave power and strive for glory will not be able to establish their name the way into practice for any length of time. Accordingly, this commentary takes line 10 to mean that those who keep to the way will avoid such rulers. So the last line, I will read it again. Tao keepers will indeed avoid them. Okay, so I wanted to read that short paragraph because the Tao Te Ching can be read the way I say it in a pure invitation to awareness and rather to the yin side of life. Okay, meaning avoid the limelight, avoid yourself to the forefront, and so on. So it can be read in that pure spiritual meaning. Since I'm a maniac of Chinese history, I put things in the historical context. This book is also a book of political power for the high nobility, giving them very down to earth advices not to be too overbearing, but to be capable of listening to others. I stop here.
Thank you, Quan. Jason had to step away briefly. Yes, there are absolutely multiple ways to read the Dao De Ching. From what you might say a historical context of in its time, in its place, what was the primary reason for reading this text? It was a counterbalance to all the Confucian ruse scholar work that a young princeling would be expected to have trained, memorized, learned diligently. And so this offered a text that you almost would slip underneath the desk, one person to the next, to say, hey, I know we just got through with the Da Shui, but check this out. Mark, go ahead.
I just had a thought about the idea of being with the Tao. We usually read about follow the Tao, and in I think in 23, it said in your translation, follow the Tao, being together with the Tao. In 23.
Let me pull this up. Can everyone see the text?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. In 23, for those together, yeah.
And in the line above, those who follow the Tao will be together with the Tao. So there are three things. They're following the Tao, which makes it sound like it's a path of some sort. Being with it is almost like you're dwelling with it. You are one with it, and I think that also has been said more recently in a chapter, being one with the Tao. So I'm just wondering how far we want to push these metaphors. How many ways? I think that Quan, you are often defaulting on, I know correctly, to this idea of infinite awareness. And so there are only so many ways we can say we are something, we follow something, we are with something, with using sort of another preposition. Even following is a preposition. So there are only so many ways that we can talk about this in terms of being, but I think they all come down to this infinite awareness.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, so yes, I think you make a good point, how far we want to push, and then for me, okay, I don't push at all. I just base on the text, and that's up to you. I think anyone as a reader to decide it's a metaphor or what's that meaning. Okay, so the way I do it, follow. Okay, those who follow, because I base on the Chinese text, 从事于道. That means you engage. You 从 means follow, 事 means doing things. So I talk about who I use the word follow means you follow or engage. Okay, then you will be together. And then because the rest it doesn't it skip, just like English, the same verb, so they skip. So and they talk about the also in the same way, laws also in the same way. That's the way we do the translation. And then up to you, the reader. Okay, you want to how you want to take this one. Okay, as epistemology, or you want to take this one as engagement, or you want to take this one as following the Tao as a metaphor. That's your choice. Okay, thank you, Mark. Darren, please.
Yeah, that was a interesting comment. That was Mark, right? And I just want to add a bit to that. So the text says, Dao De Tong Yu Dou. So those of the Tao are with the Tao or together with the Tao. But then later on, so it repeats that, right? So it says those with virtue are with virtue. Dak Je Tong Yu Dak. And then those of loss are with loss. Sat Je Tong Yu Sat. But then later, okay, but then it reverses it next, in the next part. So it says, Tong Yu Dou Je Dou Yik Lo Dat Ji. So those are with the for those who are with the Tao is also pleased to have them. So the key word here is not like Tong Yu, which is with or together with, but here it repeats this Yik Lo, which is also and happy or also pleased. So there's this interesting association between being with and together with the Tao, and it says the Tao is also pleased to have you or have them. So I guess there's association between being with and sort of pleasure or happiness, but it's also because of the word also. I don't know what that's in Mandarin, but like Tao, and then the second character after is yik. So it's saying that yeah, like the world sort of reflects this pleasure or happiness back to you. So it's saying so I guess it adds the second part here adds a bit of information, which is that when you're with the Tao, it's also a kind of feeling of happiness that is also that the Tao itself is also happy in return. So anyway, that's just a bit I wanted to add. I thought it was interesting, just to I guess stay with those those words.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. Okay.
I would want to say that here, I think actually the sort of colloquialism in English of pleased to have you could be applied. The virgin's sacrifice was thrown into the volcano, and the volcano was pleased to accept it. It's kind of a little tongue-in-cheek. It's kind of meant to be more of a anthropomorphic personification of something that doesn't have that. The way I think of the idea of being together with the Tao or following the Tao is to remember that simply translating Tao to an English parallel like path or way fails to capture everything, because Tao can also mean a discourse. Tao can also mean I don't want to say method, because Fa is actually closer to that, but it can also mean a way metaphorically as opposed to a physical path or a physical So when you talk about being together with it, and it being pleased to have you, it's kind of like you jumped into the river with an inner tube, and the river was pleased to carry you down river because that's the way it goes.
Thank you, Mom. Okay, so one important word I like to mention here is tong. Okay, you will see tong a lot. I kind of very consistent translate tong. You see how many tong on this short paragraph? I translate as together. And some translator may use a much stronger word like unite. Okay, or I see. Embrace, unite. Okay. Um, I I use together because I do see home means side by side naturally. Okay. So that's my interpretation of this word. Okay.
Can I just jump in with that word on that word
Okay,
specifically?
go
I just
ahead.
want to point out like I was just looking at the Moss Roberts translation. It actually has a weaker
Okay.
interpretation. So it translates tong as correspond to. So that's even
Correspondent. Okay.
that's
Okay.
even weaker. It's not even saying you're with, or it just says it has some correspondence in
Okay.
abstractly.
That's the way to do it. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So for example, like if you read Confucius, there's a Da Tong. Okay. So some Da Tong, and the most translation will translate as the great unity. And I disagree. I would prefer the word to talk about great togetherness, something like this. That's the way I read this word. But I just want to mention it could be very different than other interpretation. So, Paul, please.
Yeah, I appreciate this last little dialogue because from a sort of a mental health point of view, I think of the loss thing, the connection with loss as something you sometimes see with trauma victims where they get together with their loss, they get an attachment to it, they get united with it, and they've chosen that. So they kind of perpetuate the loss by this attachment. So I just think you guys are traveling down that same road in this conversation. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Paul. Okay, so let's move on for 25. Okay, just like next week, we will cancel next week's meeting because some scheduling problem. So today, make sure we finish 25. Okay, so please read translation. Kwang, please.
Okay, so translation by Professor Moss Roberts, stanza 25. Manifesting material in form unshaped, born before heaven and earth themselves, unseen, unheard, above, apart, standing alone, ever true to itself, swinging in cycles that never fail, mother of heaven and earth, it seems, but I know not how to give it names. Press I shall dub it the moving way, or call it by names, the all supreme and passing beyond, and reaching for, and reverting back. Indeed, the way is all supreme, and heaven too, and earth and man, the four things in this world, the supreme. And among them, one is man, who is bound to follow the rule of earth, as earth must follow heaven's rule, and heaven the rule of the way itself. And the moving way is following the self momentum of all becoming.
Thank you, Kwang. Steve, please.
Hey, well, I've never done these comparisons before, and it's fascinating because I'm listening to him and trying to figure out where it is in my translation. They're so different. It's fascinating.
DC Tao.
Really enjoying this group. So, yeah, so this one says, There is a thing confusedly formed, born before heaven and earth, silent and void. It stands alone and does not change, goes round and does not weary. It is capable of being the mother of the world. I know not its name, so I style it the Way. I give it the makeshift name of the Great. Being great, it is further described as receding. Receding, it is described as far away. Being far away, it is described as turning back. Hence the way is great, heaven is great, earth is great, and the king is also great. Within the realm, there are four things that are great, and the king counts as one. Man models himself on earth on heaven, heaven on the way, and the way on that which is naturally so.
Thank you, Steve. Ren, you.
Yes. Okay. So my version says, there is something formed as a mixture. It emerged before the cosmos. Solitary, inchoate, standing alone and immutable, permeating all processes without limit. We can deem it the social world's mother. I don't know its name. To assign an ideograph to it, we say way. Forced to construct a name for it, we say great. Great is to say expansive. Expansive is to say far-reaching. Far-reaching is to say reversing. So ways are great. Nature, sky is great. Earth is great. And kings are also great. Within a region are four greats. And the king is one among them. Humans follow patterns on earth. Earth follows nature, sky. Nature follows ways. Ways follow what is so of itself.
Thank you, Ren. So let me.
Just a quick question, Rain. Whose translation was that?
It is Chad Hansen.
Oh. Okay. So that.
Chapter 25, Undifferentiated Creation. There was something undifferentiated, formed prior to heaven and earth, nature. It is soundless, formless, independent, and changeless. It revolves endlessly. It is regarded as the mother of the world. I do not know its name and address it as Tao. I may name it the Great, if I have to. The Great means passing. Passing means far away. Far away means returning. Therefore, Tao is great, heaven is great, earth is great, and man is great is also great. These are the four greatnesses in the universe. Man is one of them. Man follows the ways of earth. Earth follows the ways of heaven. Heaven follows the ways of Tao. Tao follows its own way.
Thank you, Amma. So here's, you may hear a few different version. I think, I'm not sure when Ren read it and the DC Dao talk about kin. But in our translation, there's no kin because the word 人, okay, 天大, heaven is great, 道大, 天大, 地大, 人亦大. Heaven is great, Dao is great, heaven is great, earth is great, and 人 in some version, they use the word 王, okay, instead of 人, talk about 王, and that's why it translates as kin. I don't think that's the right word because I think the 人 fit better in here than kin, because if you change kin, change to kin, this one become political teaching, which I in a way, I should say, I don't think it fit well. I prefer use the word 人, and that's why I translate as man. Again, okay, back to our early discussion about gender, male, female. Yes, I translate as man in the which, just like Kwang mentioned, means mankind, this kind of thing. So I think this chapter is quite important, and I think the structure is very well, because at the beginning it talking about metaphysics, or talking about the origin of the world, right? There was something undifferentiated form prior to 天地, I translate as nature, heaven and earth. That he's talking about, the author is talking about something earlier than the world being created, okay? And which is soundless, formless, independent, and changeless. Okay, so that's the attribute of that origin, the Big Bang, or you want to call it the starting point. Then talking about this thing, the origin, the seed of the world, also is the mother of the world. Okay, you be careful about the word 天地, heaven and the earth, and here talking about under the heaven. Under the heaven, I translate as the world. That means the mother of the world. And then in Dao De Jing, under the heaven, the world means the political world, the civilized world. So here is talking about the beginning of the nature world and the cultural world. And then what's this thing? How does it create? I don't know. And then it just call it Tao. And then just give some attribute of the Tao. We call it the great. So finally, under the third part, the author talking about the four great things: the Tao, the heaven, the earth, and the man, or mankind. And then I think the last part is important. Talk about man follow the earth follow the heaven follow Tao, and the Tao follow its own way. Tao is unmoved mover, if we want to talk about in Aristotelian terms, right? 道 follow its own way. 自然, 道法自然. Some translator will say the Tao follow the nature, which I disagree, because I always translate 自然 as not as nature, as its own way. Okay. So Amang, your turn.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, Ziran is often of itself or only it. And it does mean the thing doing what it is naturally going to do. All of these terms should be pointed out as they're not highly elevated. I mean, even when he says great, great is ta. It's kind of the least version of great that you could use. I've always read this, and when I read, Tao is great, heaven is great, earth is great, man is great. It's not in the text, but I always hear ho hum, because that's really what one should be paying attention to, not some lofty, elevated, ethereal ideal. This greatness is happening just right here, right in front of you, all the time. One of my favorite authors once wrote, from the perspective of a deflowered god, you might say, humans are always impressed with the ability to turn water into wine, as if the ability to turn sunlight into grapes into wine isn't far more miraculous. They just don't have the patience to observe it. And that, I think, really hits at this notion of the Tao is great. The Tao is great, but it's great in a very mundane, very subtle, very everyday kind of way that man overlooks. And man is great in the same way. But we try and elevate ourselves, not being enamored or trying to figure out why did the webbing of my fingers stop growing here and not just keep going another inch and a half. That's pretty amazing. We aren't amazed by the everyday, by the humdrum. And that's what it means by great means passing. Passing means far away, but far away means returning. And in this case, it's right there before you to be observed all the time. So all of these things are great. Ho hum. Try and actually follow or observe them, and you'll see that amazingness for what it is.
Thank you, Mom. Steve, please.
So I'm curious, actually, if you could put the translation back up, I'd appreciate that. So it's interesting. In a couple of the readings, I heard a thing one way, and in another reading, and your reading, I heard it kind of a different way. And it occurs to me it's not maybe even so much the words, but the tone of voice of it being read. I'm looking at the first two lines of the last section there. Therefore, the Tao is great, the heaven is great, earth is great, and man is also great. There are four greatnesses in the universe. And then a couple of times I heard man is only one of them. Your translation seems to be more, and man is one of them, you know, very different emphases, and I'm just wondering what you think of that.
I read it in Chinese, right? 狱中有四大而人居一焉. I don't think, at least my understanding, it doesn't say man is only one, okay? And it say man is one of that. And then it also fit to the Taoism general idea, right? Man is not that important, it's one of the animal, something like this. At least that's what I understand, and that's how I read in Chinese.
Yes, but so is it, but I guess what I'm getting at is it emphasizing that man is one of the great things, or that man is merely one of the many great things? If you hear a difference there.
Man is merely one of the I think it's okay. I got your point. Okay. That's pretty sweet. Okay. The background is man is as important as heaven, earth, and Tao. Okay. That's pretty sweet. Okay.
They're putting them on equal ground.
On the equal ground. Yes, you are right.
Okay.
Put on equal ground. I'm not sure in the English is read in the same way. Man is one of them. Okay, I would
I
like.
think it's kind of ambiguous, which is why I was asking the question again.
Okay,
I might have been it's only the tone of voice I heard it in caused me to read it as an equal among them, or emphasizing that it is only one of them. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think you answered that.
You are right. Okay, at least my intention is to say, man is as great as Tao, as great as heaven, as great as.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the
that seems more consistent with just my understanding of the philosophy as well.
Yeah. Okay. Great point. Yeah. Mark, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I got two questions. So back to that, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So back to that last question. The last character in the line, Yan, first tone, isn't that kind of like an explanation point or a point of emphasis? How would you translate that character in the context of this line? That's my first question.
Excuse me, Mark. Which one you are talking about?
Yan, in Yu Zhong You Ci Da Wang Zhu Qi Yi Yan, the very last.
Oh, Yan, this word?
Yeah.
Okay, that's no meaning. That uses the punctuation.
Right. So the way my book translates it translates it as an explanation point. Meaning the king is great.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, this word is you can translate as exclamation, okay, but mm, but it also means also, okay. I'm not sure
But
how to. Yeah, I
I was
got your.
just, I'm sorry. I was just going to add that both of those interpretations. Now, again, I appreciate that because I see in the Chinese, it really is emphasizing it is equal among them, whether
Yeah.
it translates as an exclamation point or an also. So I don't know.
Yeah, exclamation.
The
Oh,
English does still feel a little ambiguous to me, but I can see from what you're describing the Chinese why it is the one interpretation.
yeah. Thank you, Mark. That's a good point. You can say exclamation based on the reader doesn't think people are so important, and then the teacher tell you, no, you are important. Just like when you assume most of people not seeing people is same level as Tao, heaven, and earth, but you say no, you are as important as this great thing, then put the exclamation mark. Yes, thank you, Mark. And your
Okay,
second
I
question?
one more question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, go
So
ahead.
this is related to the first thing that you brought up is
Yeah,
these last 8 lines in the first four of them you've got like a kind of hierarchy of what is it, Tao, heaven, earth,
yeah,
and king, Wang, which it puts in here.
uh,
And then the next 4 lines give the exact same hierarchy, except they invert it. Instead of great, you have like obey, follow, or emulate, which makes sense for the inversion. But you have people, earth, heaven, and Tao. So all three terms are the same, except you have run instead of Wang. And so, which you pointed out at the beginning, which I'm wondering is what do we know about the oldest recovered versions of this book and whether they support Wang or run for that first iteration of the line.
okay.
That's it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, I'm not that interested about what's the origin, what's that, but I'm more interested is on the philosophy itself. So I like, okay, that put it this way, I like use ren instead of wang. Okay, so unless you have a very strong evidence, tell me, okay, that definitely it's wang, not ren, then I will change my mind. But I choose Ren. Basic is I like it. Okay, let's put it this way. And I think it fit better in the whole Taoism philosophy. Okay, Kwang, please. Hey, where's Kwang? Kwang disappear? Oh, here. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I would like to say that there is a kind of equality, but at the same time, there is a hierarchy. Because at the end, it is very clear that man follows the way of earth, earth follows the way of heaven, heaven follows the way of Tao, and Tao follows its own ways. So it is obvious that Tao is the only element here which is, let's say, timeless and absolutely autonomous because Tao follows its own ways and it doesn't have to follow the ways of something else. But at the same time, the Tao is great, heaven is great, earth is great, and man is also great. So I cannot resist here to say that we have here the formless and the forms, okay? Timelessness and time. So in the sense that man is capable to participate to timelessness, he is one of the four elements or four things who are great. But also he has to follow the way of earth, which is subordinate to heaven, and heaven is subordinate to the Tao. So I would say that here we have perfect Taoist expression of the togetherness of time and timelessness. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwang. Darren, please.
Yes, just listening to Quan, lost my own thought. Yeah, and I guess just maybe to add a bit to what Quan was saying, I guess the thing that I kind of find provocative in this is the beginning. It says, so silent, so ethereal, sorry, independent and changeless, circulating and ceaseless. So I just like this idea that it says it's changeless, but it also says it's circulating and ceaseless. I don't know. I just find these combination of opposites to be interesting, provocative, stimulating. Okay, I just wanted to share the footnote about whether that word, that character is man or king. So this is in the Moss Roberts book. So there happened to be a footnote and looked at it. So I'm just going to read the footnote and people can make of it what what you will. So it says in line 16, man replaces king in Guodian and Ma Wang Dui manuscripts. I don't know if I'm saying those names properly. Embedded in the ancient graph for king is the graph for man, the vertical line dividing into two legs in the lower half. Wang, what's that in Mandarin? And
Yeah,
king?
Wang. Yeah.
Wang.
Yes.
Okay, Wang in
Yeah,
Cantonese.
that's good.
Wang means leader or he who walks ahead. The shift from king to man may have been influenced by a statement Zheng Zi attributes to Confucius. So this is a quote by Confucius. Born of heaven, nourished by earth, man is greatest. And that's it. That's a footnote.
Okay.
So make of it what you will. So, but clearly it's a reversal of maybe what Confucius is saying, at least in this quote that's been attributed to Confucius, where he says man.
Well, yeah, I just have to say personally, I disagree. I just will say Wang will read more Confucianism than Ren. Okay, so that's my my opinion. So, but anyway, we don't know. Okay, so any other comment on this chapter? No.
I will say one last word because I'm going to take the advantage.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you to everybody, first of all, for being here and sharing your thoughts. Our work gets better by your input, and I do appreciate hearing voices that conflict with our Dao as we have been going through this process. I do want to reiterate something. The Dao De Jing tries to use everyday language. It tries to remain unelevated throughout the text. So even whether it was speaking of a king or of man in general, it's still trying to humble us to a perspective that is much more broad than sort of our very narrow this or that human view of things. It's a hard perspective to actually adopt, but that invitation is there and it raises these ideas strictly for the purpose of taking someone off their high horse of human elevation, stop treating our opposable thumbs as the pinnacle, and seeing how much more there actually is to be appreciated.
Thank you, Amam. Steve, please.
If we are done talking about the chapter itself, I have a general question.
Yeah, please.
I'm curious where the titles come from. The translation I have doesn't have chapter titles, and
Okay.
I'm just curious where those are coming from.
I think according to Kwang, it's come from He Shang Gong. Okay, that's one of the version. And then, personally, if you ask me, I will use a better title, but I just decide to follow what's the He version, and I try to translate. So you don't have to
So
take it.
did that version make up the titles? So the titles are
Yeah,
not
yeah,
in any
that's a
original
commentator.
text. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yeah, because
see.
that's to make it the title. So you don't have to take seriously. So I
was
don't
just
think
curious.
yeah, I think the ancient Chinese doesn't take the title serious. Just for example, like Confucius Analect. Okay, so the title just take the first two words. Okay, so that's it. So just Nick, please.
Yeah, thanks. This chapter is very deep metaphysically. It gets to the depths of the Chinese way of thinking, thoughts. So I just want to make one comment on this. If you don't mind putting up your translation on the screen, that would help me to articulate. Yeah. So I like to focus on your on the screen second paragraph. The English word name it appears twice, and also a related 字 I think you translated address. Okay, so name and to address.
Okay.
Okay, I like to focus on that because
Okay, go ahead.
this somewhat echoes the first chapter of Dao De Jing, the most famous citation. That if you could name the Tao, it's not a Tao, that sort of thing. But here, he gives the certain thinking, rationale, why he named it Tao, and what is the meaning of this name, etc., etc. So I think that's where I get the impression that that this is very deep metaphysically. So my comment on this name, the Ming, is to share with you linguistically Ming. Yeah, it translates to English name. Yes, that's absolutely accurate, but it lost a certain meaning in the original Chinese. The original Chinese character for name, for Ming, has two components. If you stare at it, even though you don't read Chinese, you could see roughly there are two components. One part says evening, yeah? The other part says mouth, your mouth. So the origin of this character is that in darkness at night, when people walking around, they couldn't see each other. So they shout out their own name to avoid bumping into each other. That's how this character came about. So then you immediately get a sense. It's something you use, but you really don't know what it is, but you know there's somebody there, even though you don't see it. So you don't bump into it. So it's a symbol somehow to alert you to the existence of that, whatever being symbolized, but you really don't know what it is. So okay. 字, the other one, Jason, you translate to address, that is a bit more formal. It also means name, but in a formal sense, in the sense that we define, we name this person currently on the screen, Jason, right? Then we know Jason means in the meetup group means that particular character, and with all the thoughts, work he has done, whatever. So that's a subtle difference of the 字. And here, obviously, the multiple usage, the three usage, twice the Ming, once the 字, try to get a handle on this ineffable concept Tao. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Yes, I have to say, I'm not sure. I think 字 probably the only time being used in the Tao Te Ching. I'm not very sure, but I think probably only used once. Okay, let me check quickly and then yeah, okay. So this chapter, okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't share. So this word, okay, Nick just mentioned, 字 is a little bit strange used here because that's the only time, okay, Dao De Jing used this word. Okay, so anyway, I probably showing too much about the difficulty of translation. Anyway, thank you very much. Right now it's 7 o'clock in my time, and then I will take 1 week off next week because I'm moving around, traveling, so I'm not sure where I will be. So that's cancel for next week, and then week after, which is next week is 13, and we should start 13, and we will go through 26, 27, and 30. And anyway, thank you very much, and then see you next time. Bye.
Mamanzo.
Fascinating as always. Thank you all.